Here's something that might surprise you. Most people who grew up wealthy were never told how to act wealthy. Nobody sat them down and explained the rules. They simply absorbed them, the way you absorb your native language without ever studying its grammar, which means, strangely, that those rules can be studied. They can be reverse engineered. They can be learned by anyone, regardless of their bank balance. Old money is not actually about how much you have. It's about a specific, learnable set of behaviors: restraint, quality, composure, discretion, that have nothing to do with your bank statement and everything to do with how you carry yourself. Today I'm giving you 9 specific, practical ways to embody that, not to deceive anyone, not to pretend to be something you're not, but because these are frankly just better habits. They will serve you in any room you walk into, regardless of what's in your bank account. Let's get into it. 1. Stop talking about money entirely. The single most identifiable trait of true old money is silence on the topic of money. Not awkward silence, comfortable silence. The subject simply doesn't come up. Here's what this looks like in practice. You don't mention what you paid for something: your house, your car, your watch, your vacation. You don't ask other people what they paid either. You don't discuss your salary, your bonus, or your investment portfolio at a dinner party, even casually, even as a joke. You don't complain about prices being too high, and you don't brag about a good deal you found. This is harder than it sounds, because in most modern social environments, particularly American ones, money talk has become almost a form of bonding. I can't believe what rent costs now. I got this for half price. Do you know what they're paying for that roll? It's everywhere, and it feels natural to participate. Old money etiquette treats all of this as a subtle violation for a very specific reason. Any conversation about money creates a hierarchy. Someone in the conversation has more, someone has less, and now everyone present is silently calculating where they stand relative to everyone else. That hierarchy creation is considered deeply uncomfortable, even rude, because it reduces people to numbers rather than allowing the conversation to stay on equal human footing. The practical habit to build: when money comes up, redirect, gracefully, without lecturing anyone else for bringing it up. Honestly, I try not to think about it too much, delivered lightly. Ends the topic without judgment. Then move the conversation towards something else: the food, the artwork, the person's recent trip, anything substantive that isn't a financial figure. Do this consistently, and something interesting happens. People stop being able to read your financial position from your conversation. And that ambiguity, that quiet refusal to be measured, is itself one of the most old money things you can project. 2. Buy less, buy better, and keep things forever. New money buys often. Old money buys rarely. And what it buys, it keeps. This is probably the single most actionable shift you can make, and it has almost nothing to do with how much money you actually have. It's about ratio, the ratio of how often you buy things to how long you keep them. The old money approach to acquisition is built on a few principles. First, fewer, better things. Instead of 5 mediocre sweaters, 1 excellent one, in a natural fiber, in a color that works with everything else you own. Instead of a wardrobe that chases trends, a wardrobe built around items that were correct 10 years ago and will be correct 10 years from now. Navy blazers, white shirts, well-cut trousers, leather shoes that can be resoled rather than replaced. Second, maintenance over replacement. Old money households have their shoes resoled, not thrown away. They have their watches serviced, not upgraded. They mend rather than discard. There is a specific kind of pride in old money culture around keeping things working. A coat that's been relined, a piece of furniture that's been reupholstered, a car that's been kept running for 2 decades through careful maintenance, rather than replaced with the newest model. Third, and this is the part people miss, visible age is not embarrassing in old money culture. A worn leather bag, a faded but well-tailored jacket, a car with some miles on it, these don't signal poverty. They signal permanence. They say, I am not interested in chasing what's current. I bought this because it was good, and it's still good, and that's the whole story. The practical exercise: before any purchase, ask yourself a single question. Would I be content owning this in 15 years? If the honest answer is no, that's usually a sign the purchase is about the moment, not about lasting value. This single mental habit, applied consistently, will change your spending pattern more than any budgeting app. 3. Master the art of understatement. We touched on this in a previous video, but it's worth its own deep dive here because it's so foundational. Old money language runs on deliberate minimization. Something excellent is quite good. Something thrilling is rather fun. A person who is brilliant is sharp, never a genius. The higher the actual quality of something, the more muted the language used to describe it. This extends beyond speech into presentation. Old money dress, homes, and possessions are characterized by the absence of obvious branding. A bag's quality should be evident in its leather and construction, not announced via a logo. A watch should be elegant in its simplicity, not loud in its display of complications or size. A home should communicate comfort and history, not square footage and granite countertops. The psychological logic here is important to understand because it's the key to applying this rule authentically rather than performatively. Understatement works because it signals security. The person who needs to announce their success, their possessions, or their taste is implicitly revealing that they need external validation for these things. The person who doesn't announce anything is implicitly saying, I don't need you to know. I know. That's enough. Practically, this means when you receive a compliment on something nice you own, resist the urge to elaborate on its cost or rarity. A simple, thank you, I'm glad you like it, does more social work than any explanation of provenance or price. When something goes well for you, a promotion, a good investment, a stroke of luck, resist the urge to broadcast it widely. Let it be known through your actions and your life, not through your announcements. 4. Learn the table. Really learn it. If you want a fast, concrete, learnable skill that signals old money instantly, this is it: dining etiquette. Unlike most of the rules we discuss, table manners are genuinely teachable in a short period of time, and the return on investment is enormous because so few people, even successful, educated people, actually know them. Here are the essentials, condensed. Silverware works from the outside in. The utensils farthest from your plate are for the first course. You work inward as the meal progresses. If you're ever unsure, watch your host or simply wait a beat before picking anything up. The napkin goes on your lap immediately upon sitting, stays there throughout the meal, goes on your chair, not the table. If you leave temporarily, and is placed loosely to the left of your plate at the meal's end. Never refolded into a tight square, which oddly reads as fussy rather than tidy. Bread is torn, not cut, and buttered one bite at a time, using your own butter knife from your own butter plate. Hold your fork and knife properly. In the continental style, fork in the left hand, tines down, knife in the right. Utensils are never switched between hands. This single detail, more than almost any other, separates people who were trained from people who weren't. Posture matters more than people think. Elbows off the table while eating, resting forearms on the table edge between bites is fine in most contexts, but actual elbows down while cutting food is not. Sit upright. Don't hover over your plate. Wait for the host or the table to begin eating. In a group of more than 4, it's polite to wait until at least a few others have their food before starting, even if yours arrived first. Never discuss anything graphic, anything political in a divisive way, or anything that puts another guest on the spot. Table conversation should be light, inclusive, and considerate, drawing quieter guests in, not dominating with your own opinions. The reason this rule matters so much, dining is one of the few situations where old money behavior is observed in real time, under direct scrutiny, by people who absolutely notice. You can fake confidence. You cannot fake having internalized 2 decades of dinner table training, unless you've actually practiced it. So practice it. 5. Treat service staff with consistent, quiet respect. This is one of the most reliable behavioral signals there is, and it has the added benefit of simply being the right way to treat people. The old money instinct towards service staff sits precisely between 2 failure modes. One failure mode is contempt, being dismissive, demanding, short-tempered, or condescending toward waiters, drivers, cleaners, doormen. This is the more obvious vulgarity, and most people understand instinctively that it reflects poorly on the person doing it. The other failure mode is less obvious. Performative familiarity. Overdoing warmth towards staff, turning every interaction into a long personal conversation. Insisting on being called by first name only as some kind of egalitarian statement, making a visible show of how down-to-earth you are with the help. This, too, reads as try hard, because it's actually about your self-image rather than about the staff member's comfort. The correct mode is warm, brief, consistent professionalism. You learn names when you're a regular somewhere. You say good morning. You say thank you. Specifically, naming what you're thanking them for, rather than a generic mumble. You tip appropriately without turning it into a performance of generosity. You don't summon a manager over a minor error. You handle it quietly, directly, with grace. The practical habit: the next time you're at a restaurant, hotel, or any service environment, make eye contact, use a please and thank you for every interaction, and ask the staff member's name if you don't already know it. This costs you nothing and signals, more reliably than any possession ever could, the kind of person you actually are. 6. Develop genuine broad curiosity, not credentials. Old money culture prizes breadth over specialization and curiosity over credentialing. What does this mean practically? It means knowing a little about a lot. Enough about art history to discuss a painting intelligently. Enough about classical music to recognize a few major composers and have an opinion about them. Enough about wine to order competently without needing the sommelier's full guidance. Enough about literature, history, and current events to hold a substantive conversation on almost any topic that arises at a dinner table. Crucially, this knowledge is held lightly. You don't lecture. You don't correct people loudly in social settings. You contribute a thought, ask a question, and let the conversation move. The goal is never to demonstrate that you know more than everyone else in the room. It's to be a generative, interesting presence in any conversation that arises. This is genuinely learnable and faster than you'd think. A practical approach: pick a handful of areas: art, classical music, wine, a particular period of history, architecture, and spend a sustained period, months, not days, developing real, conversational-level familiarity. Read one well-regarded general history of each subject. Visit museums with intention, rather than just walking through. Listen to a greatest works classical playlist enough times that the major composers and pieces become recognizable. You're not trying to become an expert. You're trying to become conversant, able to hold your own, ask informed questions, and appreciate things at a level beyond the surface. That's the actual old money standard, and it's achievable with consistent effort over a few months, not years of formal education. 7. Practice radical calm under pressure. Old money's most admired trait, arguably above all others, is composure, the ability to remain visibly unruffled, regardless of what's happening internally. This shows up everywhere, in how someone responds to a rude comment, calmly without matching the energy, in how someone handles a service failure, quietly, directly, without drama, in how someone receives bad news in public, briefly excusing themselves if needed, but never making a scene, and in how someone handles being challenged or even insulted, with measured, often understated wit rather than visible anger. This is, frankly, the hardest of the 9 to develop because it requires actual internal regulation, not just behavioral mimicry. But there are concrete techniques that help. First, build in a pause before reacting to anything frustrating or upsetting. A few seconds of silence before responding to bad news, a rude remark, or a frustrating situation gives you the space to choose your response rather than simply emit it. Second, lower your voice, not raise it, when you're upset. This is counter to most people's instinct, but it's enormously effective. Both as a self-regulation technique, it's physically hard to escalate your emotional state while speaking quietly. And as a social signal, a calm, quiet response to provocation reads as far more powerful than a loud one. Third, separate the immediate processing of an emotion from its public expression. You're allowed to be furious, devastated, or humiliated internally. The old money skill is not suppressing the feeling. It's choosing when, where, and to whom you express it, rather than discharging it onto whoever happens to be in front of you at the moment it arises. This isn't about becoming cold or repressed. It's about developing the kind of self-possession that means other people's bad behavior or life's bad turns don't get to dictate your behavior in the moment. 8. Show up reliably and mean what you say. Old money social life runs on a specific kind of reliability that's become genuinely rare. People say what they mean and they do what they say. This sounds simple, but consider how much modern social life runs on vague commitments, the "we should totally get together" that never materializes, the RSVP that arrives late, or not at all, the favor promised enthusiastically and then quietly forgotten. Old money social culture treats this kind of unreliability as a serious character flaw, because consistency, over time, is the entire basis of trust. This shows up in small, practical ways. If you say you'll be there at 7, you're there at 7. Or you communicate proactively, well in advance, if you can't be. If you commit to something, you follow through, even when it's inconvenient. If you offer help, you actually provide it, rather than making the offer as a social gesture you never expected to be taken up on. It also shows up in correspondence. Old money culture still prizes the handwritten thank you note, sent within a few days of a dinner, a gift, or a stay at someone's home. This isn't an arbitrary formality. It's a tangible demonstration of follow-through. You said you'd be grateful, and you took the time to prove it. The practical habit: audit your own commitments for a week. Notice how many small promises you make casually. Let's catch up soon. I'll send that over. We should do dinner. And then actually follow through on every single one. This single practice, sustained over months, will measurably change how people perceive your reliability. And reliability is, quietly, one of the most valuable forms of social capital there is. 9. Stop performing your life. Just live it. The ninth and final way is the hardest to execute in 2026 because it runs directly against the current of how most modern life is structured. Old money does not narrate its own existence for an audience. There's no documentation impulse, no instinct to photograph the vacation, the meal, the new purchase, the well-decorated room, and share it for external validation. The experience is the point, not the record of the experience. This doesn't mean old money never takes photographs or never shares anything. It means the impulse to perform isn't present in the same way. A trip is taken because it's interesting, not because it will make a good post. A meal is enjoyed because the food and company are good, not staged for a photograph before anyone takes a bite. A nice object is bought because it's well made and useful, not because it will be unboxed for an audience. The deeper principle here is about where your sense of validation comes from. If your sense of a good life depends on other people witnessing it, you will always be, in some sense, performing for an audience rather than living for yourself. Old money's particular form of security comes from not needing that audience, from being satisfied with a good dinner, a good book, a good walk, whether or not anyone else ever knows it happened. The practical exercise, and it's a genuinely difficult one, for 1 month, do something enjoyable, a trip, a purchase, an evening out, without documenting it at all. No photos for an audience, no posts, no telling people about it afterward unless they organically ask. Notice how the experience feels different when its entire value comes from the experience itself, rather than from the record of it. This single shift, more than any wardrobe change or vocabulary adjustment, is the deepest and most genuinely old money habit you can build, because it reorients your relationship with your own life, away from performance and toward presence. Let's bring these 9 together, because they're not 9 separate tricks. They're expressions of the same underlying philosophy. Stop talking about money. Buy less. Buy better. Keep things longer. Master understatement. Learn the table properly. Treat service staff with consistent respect. Build genuine broad curiosity. Practice calm under pressure. Show up reliably and mean what you say. And stop performing your life for an audience. Every one of these comes back to the same core idea we keep returning to on this channel. Old money is not a financial category. It's a behavioral one. It's a set of habits built around restraint, consistency, genuine substance, and a deep comfort with simply being, rather than needing to appear. The good news is that every single one of these is learnable, starting today, regardless of your income, your background, or your bank balance. None of them require you to spend money you don't have. Several of them, the money silence, the calm under pressure, the reliability, cost nothing at all and will change how people experience you immediately. This isn't about deception. It's not about pretending to be something you're not. It's about recognizing that many of the behaviors associated with old money are, when you strip away the mythology, simply better ways to move through the world, more considerate of others, more durable in their values, and more secure in themselves. You don't need 3 generations of inherited wealth to live that way. You need to start. If this was useful, subscribe. We go deep on the real mechanics of wealth, status, and old money culture every week, with the kind of detail you won't find anywhere else. Let me know in the comments which of these 9 you're going to start with. I read everyone. See you in the next video.